Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United transfer news. And as stories about Donnarumma wanting Man United and Belieber getting closer to a move to Manchester United circulate without any real progress, I think there's a couple of things we can discuss here in reality that are going to be massively important on Manchester United's future. Point one, and I've seen it circulating this morning, so shout out to whoever put it out there. We interviewed Fabrizio Romano back in January 2024, and he said this: the new board will not allow non-performing players to stay at the club for several years. Omar Barada feels that players have to perform or leave the club within 1 or 2 years. Now, that was from January 2024, 18 months ago. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of things have been stated that Ineos have said, we're not going to spend big anymore, we're not going to do this anymore, no one over 26, etc. And things like that are really, really important. And they go hand in hand with what I think is that we're going to have to appreciate that there is so much that needs to be done at Manchester United. Now, I'm doing Liverpool against Crystal Palace at 3 o'clock today. It's my first chance to have a look at Liverpool, and I expect them to be on a different level to what I've seen from Man United over the last few weeks. And we have to remember that we are trying to make big impressions in the transfer market, and I certainly think we have done. But what are your expectations? My Premier League predictions drops on That's Football tomorrow. I know where I've put Man United. You can find that out tomorrow. Let me know where you would put them. But there is an element of realism there. There's a tweet I mentioned this morning that I want to talk about from Swedish Rumble, and within that he says, Mbeumo and Cunha have played together 45 minutes. A lot of these players haven't played together. Sesko's not played any minutes. To expect a Manchester United side or a Liverpool side to just go, okay, you've bought 5 brilliant players, now crack on, when you're up against teams that are established, we're going to have to be patient. We're going to have to understand that there will be... The biggest fight we've got this season is as a fan base protecting our manager, protecting our team, and the choice of whether you want to do that or not. Because when I go back and I look at that statement from Romano about Barada saying that he wants to move players on after a couple of years if they haven't worked out, I think unless there's mitigating circumstances, and I certainly think that, you know, there might be 1 or 2 players where you would go, you know, Mason Mount's been here 2 years, would you move him on? No, he's been injured. He's played under, you know, Ten Hag, who brought him in, and AMORIM's only been here 6 months. So I wouldn't say Mason Mount, you've been here 2 years, you've got to go. But I look at someone like Victor Lindelof and I go, you know, he was here way too long. And I'd look at, like, if AMORIM buys Mbeumo and he does badly for 2 years and AMORIM's still here and we're still progressing, you might look at it and go, that's not worked out. 2 years is a ridiculously short period of time, and maybe that's too short. But these are the things that you've got to set in place. And it's all right saying you want to do it, but is it in place yet? And they're the important things for me, that even if we get Belieber and Donnarumma, they're not here. Even if we get Wharton and Lemens, they're not here. The goalkeeper in the midfield aren't here. And yet a week from now, we're playing Arsenal. And the week after that, we're playing Fulham. And they might not be here for either of those. And that's 6 points. And if you lose both, you've lost 2 games. So we are making progress, and you know, I want to scream and shout and say Ineos are just in bed with the Glazers and they're as bad as them, and maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but you still got to go, what is my focus going into the season? Because I don't believe that any Man United fan doesn't go into the season with some sort of feeling and expectation. You can't walk into it blind, because then you're going to make mistakes. I'm walking into this going, I want 5th, we could finish 7th. There's going to be ups and downs. It's going to be a roller coaster, and I'm preparing myself for that. I think that obviously if you go and get beat 6-0 at home by Arsenal, you're not going to sit there and go, we need patience. You're going to lose. You're going to lose it. But ultimately, it's not enough to sack the manager. We've got to be patient. We've got to see how things work, and the board has got to work in tune with the vision as well. And it's still ridiculously early days, and we're seeing that in the transfer window. There's just a contrast of opinion all the time. So I think that's really interesting, because I think that my big point is, and they call them the bomb squad, as we've said, the Rashfords and the Garnachos, and they will be moved on in one way, shape or form. But I always say the Europa League final, we performed really badly. The manager performed badly. The team performed really badly. They're all here. And this summer was always about getting rid of the obvious. But I still think there's players here that, you know, sort of fits in with what Barada said. Players that maybe you already know aren't good enough that you need to move on. And that's beyond the obvious that we haven't got rid of yet. So we still have an immense amount of work to do. And I think my point is that this season we're not meant to solve everything. We're meant to take a step forward. And I was actually at Seb's game today. And he won. They won 4-2. Played well, scored the first goal. The team was really good. Nice to see them back playing. But somebody was saying to me, what do you expect from Manchester United? And I said 5th. And they went, really? And we had to stop talking because of the match. But I don't know whether they went, really, that's low, or really, you're having a laugh, that's high. So it's hard to gauge whether that's fair or not. And that leads me into this tweet that I did want to cover, because Swedish Rumble basically said, there's quite a lot in this, but I wanted to read it out because I think it's really important. The mainstream will not focus on Liverpool or Arsenal or City or Chelsea. They will come for us as they always do. PGMOL will come for us as they always do. But we've got to set our own expectations. A big part of football is pure luck, an inch offside, a shot hitting the post instead of going in or whatever. We can always keep our hopes up that fairy tale season and we'll start well, the players will grow and we get a lot of points, no doubt. But regardless if we get European football and can train all week, the top 4 in this league that has trained together for many years, or at least months, we aren't there yet. And that's a good point, because people talk about we're not in Europe, so we get to train all week. We're still training in season all week, learning in season all week, when other clubs, especially the top 4, even Maresca's had a full year and 2 pre-seasons. So we are behind them. We're not there yet. We've got a lot of catching up to do. Is it reasonable to expect that this team pick up as many points as Liverpool, Arsenal, City and Chelsea? It just isn't, is it? And if we look at the first couple of months to the season, the Champions League will barely have started. You've still got Newcastle, Villa, Tottenham and co, who've got every bit of chance to get as many points as we can. I'm still reading this out, by the way. And that is what it is. But at some point, the expectations must be set. We can't have a squad, manager and fan base that have to go on suicide watch if we don't have more points than Villa, Tottenham and Newcastle after 10 weeks this season. And I think this is a great point. This is like, yeah, you know, we'll be talking about the transfers at 8 o'clock tonight. I'm sure we will. But you've got to you are so important and you've got to set your expectations. And I've been trying to put this out there, and it's interesting that someone else has as well. We can't go on, you know, meltdowns after 10 games if we're mid-table. We can't do that. But we know we've got people in the fan base that will. And we definitely know that the media will. Villa, Tottenham and Newcastle, if we're in a group of those teams around 6th to 12th after 10 weeks and we're showing signs of improving, we should be pretty happy with that. And I was talking about this morning. If we're 9th and we're 4 points off 5th, what are we moaning about? Like, after 10 games, when we know we've got to play Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal and Man City in our first 8 games, if we're 4 points off 5th and we're in 9th after 10 games, that's not bad. That's not bad as long as we're improving. But in some people's minds, that'll be a meltdown. In the media's mind, we're 9th, that's it. And we've got to be cleverer than that. And it also goes on to say, when we go into late November through December, January and at least half of February, we definitely must be able to walk off the pitch after 90 minutes having put in an effort to score 3 points. Way more than not. It's during the second 10-week periods of the season where we get any kind of advantage. And this is spot on. The first 10 weeks of the season, those teams have barely played in Europe. Maybe 1 or 2 games. The second 10 weeks of the season, they're playing games 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in Europe. That's when we're not playing, and that's where our season doesn't start, but that's where we can start to make the ground. So I think the first 10 games of the season are basically just be in contention, be within touching distance. The next 10 games of the season, when all the other clubs are getting involved in Europe and we're not, and we've had 10 weeks with our players, we should then start to kick on. So I think this is how Ineos will look at it. I just hope our fans can get on board with it. And I think it's a great dissection of the season. We could lose those 4 games against the top 4, and you won't be able to move the noise of AMORIM out. But I don't think we'll understand our season till 20 games in anyway. And those games between 10 and 20, we don't have Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City and Chelsea. And they're all in Europe. And our team will be growing together and know more about each other. So people saying sack him before Christmas, it's idiotic. We won't have played 20 games by Christmas, I don't think. So it's very important that the start is a 38-game season. And until we're halfway, I don't think we really understand what we're all about. And then it goes on to say the bottom line is Manchester United is under attack. Right here, right now, more than what we've seen for decades. The club needs the fan support. It needs everyone, you and me as fans included, to make a difference in whatever way we can. And I'm certainly going into this season reminded of that. The transfer window may end up being a 5 out of 10. It may end up being an 8 out of 10. It hasn't been perfect. A lot of our players aren't ready for the season. It's not our best team against Arsenal. But it's not about challenging for the title this year. We'd love that, but it's not. We could do a Leicester, but we won't. We are about getting into that top 5 and hoping that's enough for Champions League. And we are about playing better football. And that's going to be a gradual process. And it goes on to say, we pay the wages of these points were brilliant. And you know what? I say a lot, you say a lot. But the whole reason I wanted to go through this tweet is because it resonates with what we've been talking about for the last few days. So this is one from Swedish Rumble, 4 points. We pay the wages of the reporters covering this team, and they piss on the club and its fans every chance they get. If we're robbed by the referees, they see a chance to lock the manager instead of calling it out. Absolutely true. We have a number of journalists that are decent. We have a number of journalists that first chance they get, they stick the knife in on the manager. And it might be, I mean, look at Ten Hag, the game he got sacked. Michael Oliver made a ridiculous decision giving that penalty against De Ligt. We should have at least drawn that game. No one really spoke about it because they'd already made their mind up about Ten Hag. Rightly or wrongly, they'd already made their mind up. They don't look at context. They go for our manager. And also, because they're on the gravy train, they go for the manager because they're terrified of going for the Glazers. And I've noticed that a lot with the journalism around Man United. They don't say stuff about the Glazers because they know that's the one that's going to get them in trouble. Manager, it's always a free hit. Also, we've got to be very wary of the PGMOL. I mean, I don't know about that. I think the PGMOL are just a bad organisation and they'll mess everybody else's season as well. Point 3, the Glazers are still controlling the club, and that, you know, is still true. And if you're like me and you go, the Glazers being in charge of Man United ties at least one arm behind any manager's back straight away because you're fighting against everything else that they've done to the club. And all our rivals are spending way more than us because they are richer. And that's true. And I think it's a great point as well. These things are happening in the background. We're getting excited about going for Belieber. We're getting excited about Sesko and maybe a goalkeeper. But the reality is, as we sit here right now, a week out from the start of the season, we've spent less money than Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool and Arsenal. Not combined, individually. They've all spent more money than us. Even though we've bought Cunha and Burmo and Sesko, they've all spent more money than us. They're better than us, and they've spent more money than us. And that, you know, is an important thing to hold in your mind, that we're still a long way behind everybody else, and we've still got a lot of things going against us. And we all know when the whistle blows, they won't be going after Liverpool, they won't be going after Arsenal, and they won't be going after Man City. They'll be going after us, because that's what they do. And against that background, the best you can do is get behind the club. The club needs us. And I think that's going to be the hardest thing for some of our fans. And I think it's an important message to put out a week before, because I could easily have done a quick video talking about Donnarumma, but I genuinely think you're the most important people in the fan base, and that's why we've been doing this for 10 years. I don't think you're valued enough. I don't think the club values enough, the fans enough all the time. I think they take you for granted, but you're the ones, not the club. So Jim Radcliffe can sit there and say, at the end of the day, I'm not sacking AMORIM. You will sack AMORIM if 90% of the fan base is screaming AMORIM out. There is no, you won't survive. You will keep AMORIM in charge, and you've got to remember, despite the hype of signings, just hold back on the reality that a lot of these players haven't played together. A lot of these players aren't here yet. A lot of these players aren't going to be good enough as a collective to drag up a team from last year that was so bad. We're going through transition. We've got to establish improvement. And I think the big thing is, it's not the first 10 games. We've just got to stay in contention in the first 10 games. We can't lose 8 games in the first 10, but we might lose 3 or 4. 3 or 4 losses in the first 10, 2 losses in the next 10. That's 6 losses in the first half of the season. I've already said to finish 10th, you can lose 12, because that's what Newcastle did. So context is key. You've got to dissect this season and say the first 10 games are going to be tough. Got 4 of the best teams in the league. We're not ready for the start of the season. We haven't got our signings in yet, and they've all got to get used to it. I think the first 10 games you've got to compartmentalise. And I guarantee you now, we'll lose a couple of games and the AMORIM out crew will be there. And what you need to do is be going, hold on a minute. This is a 38-game season. We know it's going to go in stages. And between game 10 and 20 is where we need to be up to speed and pounding out the wins while everyone else starts dropping points because they're in Europe. Let me know your comments in below. I enjoyed that video. I hope you have as well. It might go over some people's heads. It might resonate like it did with me. Get your comments in. We're back live at 8 o'clock. And if you want to be on That's Football Community Shield final, my first look at this Liverpool side, join me on That's Football. Take care. Stay safe. I'll speak to you on the next one.